One of the most common issues we hear facing young generations is their incessant usage and addiction to social media. Whether it's students being unable to separate themselves from their cell phones, or teenagers developing mental health issues due to social media, it's undeniable that our dependency on these technologies can have a deleterious effect. However, the problems with social media usage don't end with high school. Our dependency on social media for access to news and information can also create another avenue for us to develop an addiction to social media. Whether it's our constant doom scrolling for partisan news or comparing ourselves to others on Instagram and feeling like we're falling behind in life, social media escapism is often used as a coping mechanism that ultimately hinders one's future. Once young people reach adulthood and enter the workforce, they encounter real-world issues they are unable to cope with. As a result, we often see young people postponing life goals, citing numerous societal problems. Traditionally, starting a family was one of the biggest goals for young people. However, young people increasingly claim they no longer plan to have children. When asked why many don't want to have children, environmental impact and climate change are among the most common reasons. Another commonly cited reason for not having kids is the inability to afford a decent standard of living for themselves or their families. If they can't afford to take care of themselves, how can they afford childcare? Wage stagnation, inflation, housing market crisis have all rendered homeownership a pipe dream for many. As a response to this, more and more young people are also claiming they no longer want to own a home, with some even touting alternative lifestyles, such as van life or pod life. These living arrangements, of course, are not suitable for raising a family. Furthermore, the ongoing gender war is also making it harder and harder for men and women to get along across professional and personal context. Whether it's DEI initiatives in work and education, or the ongoing toxic battle between feminists and the red pill manosphere, trust between young men and women is declining across almost all areas of life. If men and women can't trust each other, how can they have healthy relationships conducive to marriage and child rearing? Regardless of the issue, the pattern remains the same. When asked why young people are postponing their life goals, they usually cite societal, political, economic conditions as systemic obstacles to their future. That is, until these societal problems are resolved through political reform, young people will remain hesitant to pursue their future. In the meantime, they'll just occupy themselves with social media distractions, which floods their brain with quick access dopamine for little to no effort. Given all the societal and systemic problems frequently cited by young people, it isn't hard to understand that young people would feel demoralized about their ability to achieve personal goals. If salaries are stagnant and the cost of living, education, and healthcare are too high, it can feel doubtful that one would ever make enough money from an ordinary 9-to-5 job. Instead, we see Generation Z increasingly showing interest in seeking alternative careers like crypto investing, social media, or OnlyFans. If one were to spend most of one's time on social media, it would be easier to assume that such a lifestyle was feasible for many. In reality, such alternative careers are unrealistic for most. Given the high likelihood of failure, it's all too tempting to just fantasize about extravagant lifestyles rather than actually taking the initiative to build that lifestyle, especially since most don't want to face the possibility of failure. Instead, most will just seek to escape their personal dilemmas by mindlessly consuming content in order to get a quick fix of dopamine. Why endure struggle to obtain a reward when you can effortlessly receive dopamine consuming addictive content? Another area where we see this phenomenon is with the dating market. Most of us grew up being told that we would eventually find a soulmate who would complete us. Upon reaching adulthood, we quickly realized that obtaining a relationship and maintaining that relationship long enough to have a successful marriage wasn't quite so simple. In more bleak cases, some might even argue that marriage isn't worthwhile at all. Feminists will typically blame toxic masculinity and patriarchal tyranny, while red pillers blame hypergamy and high divorce rates. In either case, both will often claim to have no interest in marriage or long-term relationships. That may be true for some, but for most it's just a cope. Instead, they will retreat into online escapism and consume feminist or red pill content to soothe themselves. When in reality, most men and women want a successful relationship, whether they care to admit it or not. When viewers consume partisan content on topics like feminism or red pill, they don't do so with the knowledge that they are engaging in escapism. In most cases, they assume that the content they are consuming will provide them with useful knowledge that will protect them from the pitfalls of bad relationships with the other gender. In this sense, it can be seen as a form of self-improvement. However, this type of content doesn't actually provide solutions in the long run. Instead, they trap viewers into a content algorithm that feeds them non-stop videos related to that subject. The more the viewers view this type of content, the more the algorithm recommends it to them, thus trapping viewers in an echo chamber that skews their perception of reality. Perhaps even more noticeably, this escapism trap also occurs in political and economic domains. On the left, students are unable to find a well-paying job that will pay off their student debt and afford them a decent standard of living. Thus, they are increasingly embittered by inequality in capitalist countries, pushing them further leftward towards socialism. On the right, uncontrolled mass immigration and the loss of jobs has pushed conservatives and libertarians further towards nationalism, a phenomenon seen not only in America, but also in Europe. Although these political and economic concerns are valid, social media algorithms and narratives increasingly push us towards ideological solutions rather than practical individual solutions. Rather than focusing on the parts of the problem that are within our domain of control, we are instead encouraged to believe that the scale of these problems is beyond our control and can only be resolved through political means. This is certainly evident in identity politics. Identity politics functions less like a practical solution to social injustice, but more like a coping strategy for marginalized groups. By associating oneself with a systemically oppressed group, one can shirk responsibility for one's problems and instead blame it on societal oppression, whether it be sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, etc. Why blame yourself for your own shortcomings when you can just put your burdens on society's shoulders? Thus, politics becomes a form of escapism from real problems. Why struggle hopelessly against a broken system when you can just wait for politicians to solve your problems for you? Finally, we see escapism perhaps most conspicuously in the realm of lifestyle and self-improvement. Among young women, they are frequently inundated with aesthetic lifestyle trends that purport to show an idealized view of life that emphasizes the importance of aesthetics in everyday life. For example, cottagecore glamorizes rural living with a focus on things like prairie dresses, scenic gardens, and rustic decor. Dark academia glamorizes and idealizes academic culture with a focus on aesthetic clothes and books. More controversially, the tradwife trend glamorizes life as a housewife by harkening back to aesthetics and tropes from 1950s America. Unfortunately for many young women, not only are these lifestyles often unrealistic, they also serve as a form of escapism from modern maladies. The pandemic lockdowns gave young women opportunity to retreat from their modern life and fantasize about an idyllic life that is abundant in beauty that they couldn't find in the corporate world. Cottagecore, dark academia, and tradwife very much serve as forms of escapism from the boring and mundane life that young women experience during and after college. For young men, self-improvement is one of the fastest growing genres on YouTube. It is hard to navigate through YouTube's vast library of male-oriented content without being inundated with countless videos purporting to provide solutions to problems faced by young men. Whether it's the male loneliness crisis, the dating crisis, or self-improvement. Although much of the advice provided in these videos can be useful, they aren't always applicable. Furthermore, it's far too easy to fall into the habit of watching countless self-help videos, while failing to actually practice these skills in real life. Instead, we often rationalize to ourselves that we aren't ready yet. We tell ourselves we still need to learn more by watching more content. In reality, we're really just procrastinating on improving ourselves. Why go through the arduous trouble of going to the gym and committing ourselves to a rigorous workout when we can just watch more fitness videos? Why get our finances in order when we can just learn more about finance strategies from our favorite finance gurus? By consuming self-help content daily, we can trick ourselves into thinking we are making progress, when in reality, our content addiction is just us trying to escape from having to commit ourselves to genuine self-improvement. Why is it so easy to fall into this escapism trap? For one, the problems young people face today often feel too daunting to resolve. Part of that is because we are exposed to a much larger variety of problems, thanks to the ubiquity of information that is constantly flooding our attention economy. From mental health issues to global catastrophes, it can be difficult to know what problems to focus on. Even when we are able to prioritize specific problems, they often feel too large to resolve. Instead, it feels much more comforting to revert back to things we feel comfortable doing. This often means just scrolling through social media and watching videos all day, whether it's junk content or content that purports to be educational. As long as we occupy ourselves with escapism, we can temporarily escape from the overwhelming burdens awaiting us in our present life. Escapism also inspires us to daydream about our idyllic future, where all of our insecurities are gone, all of our financial and relationship problems are resolved, and we are free to be our true ideal selves. In this idyllic fantasy, we get to live out all of our dreams, and we no longer have to worry about our lesser problems, which we deem beneath us, like paying bills or losing weight, or learning how to date. We like to think this fantasy future is when our real life begins, and that the stupid problems we're facing now are unnecessary hindrances imposed by an evil society. Thus, we retreat to these escapist fantasies, where we don't have to worry about failing out our dreams. To avoid responsibility for failure, we avoid attempting our dreams. No one can accuse you of failing at life if you never attempted it at all. Or so we think. Unfortunately, this idyllic fantasy is just a fantasy. None of it is real. What is real are the problems we're avoiding in our present life. As long as we continue to avoid our present problems, we won't get to begin creating the future of our dreams. Our true life is the life that we are living right now, in all of its imperfections and disappointments. Our ideal future won't exist if we continue to procrastinate on our problems. How can you have a future if you don't even have a present? How can you break out of this escapism trap? First, you must realize that escapism comes from your habit of seeking quick dopamine from non-productive behavior. If you keep getting your dopamine from escapism, it develops into a habit that needs to be broken. You must realize that your desired future requires you to get out of your comfort zone and develop skills you currently don't have. You must break out of your old habits by replacing them with new habits. You need to derive your dopamine from successfully accomplishing tasks and acquiring new skills. Given the massive plethora of problems you are bombarded with, you must learn to prioritize information that is most relevant to your goals and interests. Things that don't contribute to your long-term goals should be postponed, removed if necessary. Things that are important and relevant should be prioritized. If the problems you must resolve are too large and complicated, they should be broken down into simple components. Components that are easiest to resolve should be prioritized. As you become more proficient, you can slowly work your way up to more complicated problems. As you continue to solve your problems, you acquire useful skills and experience that not only builds up your self-efficacy, but also your sense of self-respect. As you begin to have greater respect for yourself, you hold yourself to higher standards that you are confident you can meet. This in turn garners attention and respect from others, which further increases your confidence. Confidence in your own character, as well as your ability to grow, meet challenges, and achieve goals. As you become more competent at crafting your ideal life, the path towards your ideal future suddenly becomes clearer and easier to achieve. Although the path towards your ideal life will be filled with both success and setbacks, your ability to grow and solve problems you once thought unsolvable will give you the courage to continue on. As you continue to improve yourself and continue to achieve goals, you develop new productive habits that replace your previous habit of escapism. With this process, you also learn who you truly are, as well as what your true goals and values are. And it is through this process, not escapism, that you realize your true self. Alas, these are just my observations and opinions. Feel free to discuss your opinions in the comments below. If you find this video interesting, please like and share this video. You can check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel for more content in the future. Thanks for your support. Take care.